Well, hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Ashmit Kumar. Now, the upcoming special session of the Parliament will see the government table a bill that proposes to keep the judiciary out of the selection process for India's Election Commission. The bill also proposes that the salary and service conditions of the election commissioners and the chief election commissioners will be equivalent to that of a cabinet secretary. Earlier, the status was similar to that of a Supreme Court judge. A quick caveat here, the Supreme Court, while delivering its verdict in the month of March this year, had directed that the EC selection panel should comprise of the Prime Minister, the Lok Sabha Leader of Opposition, as well as the Chief Justice. This till the Parliament comes out with a new law on appointments. Now, as per the new bill, the panel will include the Prime Minister, Lok Sabha Leader of Opposition, and a Cabinet Minister. Well, joining me now to take this discussion forward is Mr. SY Quraishi, former Chief Election Commissioner. Mr. Quraishi, thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of this discussion. Let me ask you this question. Every time there has been any conversation on a selection panel or a collegium, it has mostly comprised of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India. That was, in fact, what the Supreme Court said. The centre is trying to change that and to try to bring in a cabinet minister at the expense of the Chief Justice of India. Your quick thoughts on that?
You know, the collegium system, as you know, has been in operation for a long time for different posts. But the collegium proposed here with Prime Minister and Union Minister on one side and the Leader of Opposition makes a mockery of the collegium system in the first place. You and I know, sitting here today, what will happen in the next 5 years or so to every decision. It will be 2-1. So you are making the Leader of Opposition irrelevant from day one. So, which is absolutely unacceptable. Now, Chief Justice has been on this panel for years, and appointments have been made.
Sure.
And after they made those appointments, no fingers have been raised by the political parties. Even if some officers did not behave the way they should have, but still at least the political fingers were not raised because they went through this collegium system. But this one is faulty in the first place.
Let's get the technicalities out of the way here. The argument that is being raised by supporters of the bill is that, look, the Supreme Court made it clear that the Supreme Court collegium that it had appointed, the PM, the LOP, as well as the CJI, that formula will only exist till the Parliament comes out with a law. So here's a new law that the Parliament is coming out with, and therefore one is not contrary to the other. How would you take that?
Yeah, quite right. In this particular case, Supreme Court only said, it didn't say that there should be a collegium. They said that the Parliament should pass a law, which it has not for the last 70 years, as was expected by the Constitution. So the government is coming up with law. Supreme Court said, in the meanwhile, if need arises and if we have to fill a vacancy, there will be a collegium which will consist of the Chief Justice as well. So Parliament can pass any law, no doubt. Parliament can even say that there is no requirement for a collegium. The existing system of unilateral appointment by the government of the day is fine. So Supreme Court has not dictated to Parliament what the bill should contain. But if the government is bringing in collegium concept on its own, then Supreme Court hasn't directed that. At least it is common sense that the basic purpose of a collegium is that it's a multilateral decision all over the world. You know, the appointment of election commissioners is so difficult and judges that in fact there is parliamentary scrutiny. The committee, in some cases, there is a live interview of the candidates on a live national television so that everybody should know who is being appointed. Therefore, I think the bill could have been a little more sensible.
Let me then also ask you a follow-up question. While this law is consistent technically with the letter of the law, so to speak, as far as the Supreme Court judgment is concerned, but there is such a thing as the spirit of the judgment. And I ask you this in context of grave concern that has been highlighted in this judgment by the top court on the executive enjoying exclusive powers of appointment. That was one message that the Apex Court had sought to send out to the government, to the Parliament, to the legislature. So is there a violation perhaps of the spirit of the judgment that had been proposed by the Apex Court?
Yes, absolutely, because 2-1 collegium, we know the result. So it is nothing but executive deciding. So therefore, this surely violates the spirit of the judgment, because the whole idea was that executive unilaterally should not be appointing, which has been the point raised for the last 20-30 years by different people and different institutions, including the Election Commission, repeatedly. So therefore, even now, even the collegium can be amended. Why should the second member be a union minister? Union minister, can he go against the Prime Minister's wish? Why we can have a former retired Chief Justice of India, but not the one who was made an MP, not that one, but certainly, but somebody with credibility.
Sure. Let me then ask you also a question with some historical context. This question is not being debated for the first time. We had the Goswami report back of 1990. We had the Justice A.P. Shah authored Law Commission report of 2015. Both of them had suggested that there is some role here for the CJI. CJI needs to be consulted. He needs to be an independent voice outside of the executive, the Prime Minister, as well as the leader of opposition. Is this the only formula going forward to ensure credibility and independence and strengthening the EC?
Yeah, actually, since we already have a collegium in operation for the post of CIC, CVC, Director of CBI, and nobody has ever raised a question on the appointment of these three incumbents, except in the case of one CBI director who was appointed through this process, and again, so many complaints arose later on. So, but for that, but at least the political objection that somebody says that the ruling party has unilaterally appointed somebody, that will be taken care of by a collegium. Well, the whole purpose of collegium is the public acceptability and credibility. So therefore, the composition of the collegium should be credible, and which can easily be made by, instead of having the minister, have a third independent person, either the Chief Justice of India himself, or a former Chief Justice, or somebody publicly known as fair and neutral.
Sure.
Also,
one argument, of course, that we have also seen is that, sure.
Yeah, if I may suggest, also,
yes,
even with this composition, I'm okay. Even with this composition, if there is another change made, that is, the selection should be unanimous, which means leader of opposition should accept. Now, what PM and his cabinet minister say, and leader of opposition accept, which is possible. From the current system, which is proposed, that there will be a short list of 5 people, 5 secretary rank officers selected by cabinet secretary and 2 secretaries. Obviously, cabinet secretary will get that list from the Prime Minister before putting it up before this collegium. Now, which means all 5 will be acceptable to the Prime Minister. And from there, the obviously leader of opposition will choose anyone he may choose that will be acceptable to the PM, because they are already pre-cleared by the PM. So that will, of course, that unanimity is a very doable thing, and then let us do that.
Sure.
So otherwise, people used to say that leader of opposition will have a veto power. That veto power will not be there. He has to choose out of these 5. Now, there is one more flaw in this thing, that the committee can even go beyond the recommendation of these 5, the short list of 5. Then what is the purpose of the shortlisting committee? If it can go outside, this is absolutely arbitrary. So where has common sense gone?
So interesting suggestions. I'm sure at least the members of the opposition will be all ears for these suggestions. But we're running out of time. One final question. Given the concerns and the anomalies that you've sought to point out as a part of this discussion, do you see perhaps a challenge being filed in the top court, or perhaps the high courts, once this bill is in fact ratified in the parliament? Do you see a constitutional challenge coming its way?
Yeah, of course, we have not taken up 2-3 other relevant questions, the downgrading of the election commission, which is a different issue. But on the basic principle on which the case has gone to the court, and the importance of independent selection like the collegium, it will surely go back to the court, and court may have something to say on this.
Right, Mr. Quraishi. We'll, of course, keep coming back to you to learn more from you and your perspective on how this issue evolves. Of course, it's only at a bill stage. It's not been debated. It's not been voted upon. We'll have to see the final structure that gets passed and whether or not it manages to secure the parliamentary consent. Mr. Quraishi, thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of this discussion. With that, it's time now for a short break. But coming up on the other side, we look at the issue of the restrictions, import restrictions on IT hardware, particularly laptops and tablets and PCs, and what implications that is expected to have on the industry as the IT hardware PLI rolls out over the next couple of years. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a short wait.